Welcome to this edition of the Locker Room Chat, brought to you by the Shanneman Sports Museum of Tacoma Pierce County and Rainier Asphalt and Concrete, the #1 asphalt and concrete repair contractor in the Tacoma and Seattle area. For quality workmanship and top-notch customer service, contact Rainier Asphalt and Concrete at www.rainierasphalt.com. Let them know you heard about them on the Locker Room Chat. Today from the vault, we're pleased to share with you an interview conducted by Bob Robertson in 2010 with Joe LaPorte, a 1941 Bellarmine grad whose passion was water and snow skiing. Joe started up the Totem Ski Club on American Lake, which hosted races, water carnivals, and shows complete with tricks and fancy maneuvers, but snow skiing was his love. And after competing in various ski races, Joe went on to serve as the chief instructor for the Tacoma Ski School before starting up the Cascade Ski School in the late 1960s.
Well, Joe LaPorte, welcome. I guess the first and most important thing is, where were you born? Where did you start out in life?
Well, I was born in San Francisco, 1921, May 1, 21. And my dad was an electrician in the powerhouse at the cable cars in San Francisco. A couple of his buddies were electrocuted down there doing that work, and he didn't want any more of that, so he got out of it and went to work for Standard Oil in the cracking plant. The fumes in the cracking plant got to him. I got a cough. Excuse me. Anyway, in 1927, we come up here to Tacoma.
Must have been quite a change coming out of California into the snowy Pacific Northwest.
Well, it was different. It was wet, but that didn't seem to be anything to bother me.
Joe, how and when did you discover snow and skiing here in the Northwest?
Well, when my mother passed away in 31, I went to Missoula, Montana, where my dad was raised. And his sister actually was the one that took me up skiing first time. Well, the skis were too big, too long, whatever, and the boots were too big. But I managed to play around. I enjoyed it. And when I came back here to Tacoma, after my dad remarried, he liked to ski, and we used to go to Narada Falls, park the car, and hike up to the lodge. And after we did that for a couple of years, skiing down Devil's Dip was the thing that I enjoyed. I think most people did. But that is where I actually started to like skiing.
Now, you didn't have the giant chairlifts in those days when you went up to Narada Falls.
No, we did hike a lot, and I think we had one tow at that time, and then one or more were added later. But I enjoyed it anyhow. And when I come back, I went to Bellarmine High School. And at that time, I wanted to ski some more. So whenever I had a chance, I used to get up and go to Paradise.
What year did you graduate from Bellarmine?
1941.
Did you take part in other sports, or was skiing pretty much it?
Well, at that time, we tried to start a ski club in Bellarmine, at Bellarmine. And it didn't fly too well, mainly because of the war and the roads getting to Paradise was the other obstacle. But we tried, and in the meantime, I still was plugging along until I graduated from Bellarmine. And I still wanted to ski, and I was working and made a few bucks to pay to go here and there.
Did anybody really teach you to ski, or did you teach yourself?
Actually, I taught myself. I skied with better skiers, and that really helped a lot. Following them, going with them, and we always seemed to hang together. And a lot of those fellows are gone now, but that's how I got started. And then, I don't know, it was a program that Howie Clifford started, and he wanted to get us in a movie, which was in 1943. And we had to have more than myself. We had 14 people that skied that could get off of work to participate in this movie at Paradise. At that time, we wound up with 4 from Tacoma, and 2 gals, and Howie and myself, Howie Clifford and myself. So we enjoyed that. That lasted for 3 weeks because it was lousy weather, snowing, and the director had to have certain kind of weather. And then what happened was that he got called to go into the service, and that changed the whole program. But all my beginning of skiing was in the first few years of 1940s, in the 40s.
Joe, back in those days, with the lack of toes, perhaps a few rope toes here and there, how did you manage to get in enough skiing to satisfy your desires?
Well, I did try the skiing up at Paradise most of the time, and then got to be that I knew that there were ski areas elsewhere, and I went to Snoqualmie Pass, I went to Ski Acres, and continued skiing there. And then as the time got going, I thought, well, I gotta go to work too, so I thought, well, I better start finding a job, and I got a job on the railroad. And I started in September 41. So that kept me busy and kept me out of town. It kept me not doing what I wanted to do as far as skiing was concerned, but that was another part of the story.
Going back to the movie, do you recall the title of the movie?
Ski slopes. It was, we had a good time. I found out how they do all this stuff. They'd make us all go around, leave it an area that wasn't disturbed by ski marks and anything, and then they'd go down and make it.
I understand there was a need for certain things like perhaps a bottle of something to keep you warm up there on the ski slopes.
Well, that was the story. Howie Clifford and myself, the fellow was quite a guy with his Scotch. So Howie and I went back to Tacoma, and I don't know how he did it, but he went to the police department and picked up some ration cards. At that time, you had to have ration cards. And I think we picked up 10 or 12 of them, got his stuff, brought it back up to the ski lodge.
Now, when you went in the service in 1944, did you have an opportunity to use your skiing skill and experience in the service at all?
When I got into the service, I went into the railroad and railroad battalion, and I wound up in Strasbourg, France, as a powerhouse engineer, keeping the heat in the buildings and the roundhouse. And then I was transferred to Frankfurt, Germany, excuse me. And I went over there and got started doing the same thing. But at that time, the war was going down and more or less escalating in the Pacific. So I got a hold of Special Service. General Eisenhower was still there. My brother was in the 10th Mountain Division, and he was in Italy, and they never even saw snow, but all the equipment was there. So I went to Special Service, asked if we couldn't get some of that stuff up here and have it up here so we could use it here at on the Taunus Mountains. That was an area that was set aside for the postmen, for when they went on vacation, they could go up there. Well, at that time, after I found out we could get this equipment, which was, again, Special Service, to occupy the GIs that couldn't go home because they didn't have enough credits to go home. So we got the Corps of Engineers to come up and we built an ice rink. We got a German half-track to use as a tow, rope tow, and we made a bob run on a little sled that went down a hill and over to the one side. And that flew pretty good. And we did have a lot of guys go up there, and we got the equipment. And, well, that kept me busy for a while.
So you were teaching some skiing as well as enjoying the skiing yourself.
Yes, that was the beginning of myself getting around. After after we got going, there was a captain, an Army captain, and a lieutenant, myself, and 2 GIs. We worked together and we traveled Europe, different areas, because we were on a ski team and we participated in different areas. And we did go to Davos, Switzerland. I saw how they did things there, and we enjoyed that. Went to Garmisch in Germany, and that's where I spent a couple of weeks. And that's where I took lessons to become an instructor. I skied well enough for them. They thought anyway. So I spent my time learning how to teach the Alberg technique. And later on, everybody else comes up with the French technique, the Austrian technique, and you have all these other techniques, which is fine. It's just that that's what I took up, because that's what we were using here in the Northwest.
You skied many places that have become Olympic skiing sites before there were Winter Olympics. Have those sites changed considerably since then?
Well, really, excuse me, really, I never did go back to Europe to see how things developed after we left. But Garmisch was a place where it was set aside for the GIs. They had hotels there and rest areas, as you call them, rest areas, I guess. And we did pick up a lot of skiers. That's where the 1936 Olympics was held, in the bob run. We weren't allowed to use that. The GIs were not allowed to use that run.
So after your service time and you came home, you then got seriously into teaching skiing and instructing?
Yes, one of the fellows that I was with on this adventure over there, he was teaching skiing in Vermont, St. Johnsbury, Vermont. So when we got home, he called me up and says, "Hey, come on over." Well, I had to get permission from the railroad because the railroad was getting anxious that I stay home, which was all right. So I went back there to Vermont in 47, and I taught for a couple of months, and I didn't care for it. It's hard-packed snow. It was icy most of the time, but we did go around to the various areas. And while I was back there, I decided to buy a pair of skis too, because they made skis there, Dartmouth skis. And I come back home, and that's when I really got interested in getting involved in teaching skiing. It was in 1947 when Sun Valley were looking for instructors. They came up this way, and we went up to Chinook Pass. I don't remember, it must have been about 10, 15 of us that wanted to learn teaching the Sun Valley method. And they did not belong to the PNSIA that we have here. They had their own ski school. They had their own instructors that taught the way they wanted. Otto Lang was there, and he was in charge of the ski school. So that's where another instructor here in town, Dan Olson, and I both got certified. And we went home. We never paid much attention to it, and I got a call to go, asked if I wanted to go to Sun Valley to teach. So I went down there in 1949 and 50. And that's when I came home and started Totem Ski Club out here on American Lake. And at that time, we had the club set up for 6 months of water skiing and 6 months of snow skiing. We participated in a lot of the races, helped put on races. Seattle used to come over here and put on the races at Paradise because that had a lot of snow and never had to worry about that part. And they had longer hills. So we had two of our people in the Totem Ski Club that went to Seattle to learn to be timers. And we had bamboo poles that we had to haul up to the top of that mountain, and that was a chore too. But I set a lot of courses for the Daffodil Cup and the Tacoma Day and Totem Ski Club and Heidelberg Cup race. And that kept me busy for a while and trying to railroad at the same time. And pretty soon the railroad started saying, hey, you either teach skiing or get out, period.
Now, you were involved, as you said, with the Totem Ski Club, half a year of snow skiing, half a year of water skiing. Are the techniques similar enough that you could instruct in both?
Well, I learned to water ski in between all this when I come back from the service, and I picked up an old boat. I had a motor on it that could pull us water skiing anyway. So at that time, I knew several people that snow skied, and we formed this club and thought, well, by golly, we're going to make it work, and we did. We put on water shows clear up in Lake Osuyas, and we had our own jumps. I think there was 5 of us that joined the American Water Ski Association, and we got the plans to build proper water ski jumps and whatever. And we had one set up out on American Lake on Silcock Island because that's where we invested some money and bought a little piece of property and then got a little more. And the club is still there.
The equipment that you used in the early days of your skiing career, I would assume wooden skis, so wide and so long, and you had to reach all the way up and get them to cup into your hand or something for length. They were enormous compared to the equipment and the weight difference between now and then.
There's a lot of difference in the equipment nowadays. In fact, if you got on a chairlift in some of these areas now, and you got the old, what we used to call bear claws type binding, they won't let you on because they figured it's unsafe. There's a lot of things that have advanced in skiing, and boots. Mainly the boot is the most important part of your equipment, because if your feet are going to be moving inside the boot, you're not going to get the proper turns that you want and whatever. The ski poles have changed. Instead of having that sharp point, they've cut that down so that you don't have to hit anybody. I shouldn't say hit anybody, but hurt anybody. The skis themselves have gone up and down in sizes, height, and length, and the width, and the bottom of the skis. In the old days, I don't know, Bob, if you remember, Jack Allen used to have a ski shop right down there on 11th and Pacific, or 11th and Tacoma Avenue. And he bought a lot of surplus wooden skis, and I helped him put edges on them because they didn't have edges. And that's the skis, the one pair that I got down at the Dome now, sitting down there. Everybody wants them, but yes, a lot of changes in your equipment. The boots are higher. I put on a pair of boots here not too long ago, and I just I couldn't see how these people ski that way, because they're already made with a high heel inside. You're forward, because you got to be forward when you're going downhill. You can't be back. That's water skiing. You're going to be doing that way, but you got to be forward. And I couldn't ski with a hoot on those things.
Gretchen Koenig Fraser and Shirley MacDonald Fopp are probably two of the most famous female skiers, not only in the Tacoma, Pierce County area, but America and maybe the world. Gretchen won a gold medal in 1948, the Olympics, and that was in San Moritz in Switzerland. Did you know these ladies well during their skiing careers?
Not Gretchen, no. I knew of her, and she was a great skier, a great racer. I knew her husband. I didn't know him personally, but I mean knew of him. Shirley, yes, I know Shirley and Martin because we worked together, and she was with me in my first adventure in starting the ski school. And yes, they were great people, great skiers. She was a very good skier. I don't know how she had the courage to do what she did because I tried the same hill and I panic. I guess is the word you use.
We watch the youngsters on television now, and they're doing all sorts of stunts and tricks on skis. And I guess if we go back to the Warren Miller movies, we see some of that as well. Were you ever involved in any of that?
Never. I never got involved in that. And they did put out some, especially nowadays, with what you see up there in the hill. These young people with their flips and whatever. And now they're using a lot of the snowboards, which are great. I think there should be a little more thinking about having a special spot or area where the snowboarders can have it to themselves, rather than mixing the two together in the beginner stages. Now I'm speaking to like when you have a school up there. Some of these people are great. They do wonders with those skis. I don't think I'd ever want to try it.
You must have worked with a number of outstanding instructors and great skiers. Can you just recall some of the names?
Well, let me put it this way. In 1937, the Seattle Times started their program. And when they had the kids' ski school, they went to the Milwaukee Ski Bowl. Then the PI came in and said, hey, we got to do this too. So they started their ski school and they went to a Snoqualmie Summit. When we started our ski school, the only place we could go was Paradise at the time. Then we went over to the other areas. So as you got into the other areas, you got to meet an awful lot of better skiers because a lot of our people were here were not capable of skiing as fast as they were. And then Jack Nagel from Crystal Mountain, when they got going, he wanted our school because we're closer. And I just didn't want to do that. The newspapers were the sponsors of a lot of the ski schools out here in the West years ago. And if it wasn't for them, I don't think we'd have the group of people we have. We had 600 kids every weekend practically. And for us down here, we were kind of the last to get into this program. So meeting the better skiers and whatever, we did. But most of the time when you met the good skiers, they were at Crystal because they got a longer hill, downhill, racing, whatever. So it was interesting to meet these other people but I never was involved in that. My program was to introduce skiing to the kids. If they wanted to continue, they'd go to a different school and learn, the faster techniques if they wanted to be a racer or advanced skier.
You had some involvement from the police, the PTAs, the Tacoma Athletic Commission in your school?
I can only say that the Tribune and the Metropolitan Park District were the two people that took care of everything. I didn't ever get involved with the police department. Had a building down there that we used to have meetings, but not for the Tribune Ski School. They put on a great program. We had, I think the most instructors we had was 14. And that's scraping the bottom because we didn't have the people here that were certified enough to teach. But like I say, we stayed with the lower program, and it went over pretty good.
It sounds like you had a lot of great people around you in this. I'm going to throw out a few names and just give me a thought if you can remember about their involvement and these people as individuals. Marshall Perrow and Merritt Cookingham, just a couple.
They were instrumental in a lot of the skiing, and we had Chauncey Briggs or Griggs. We had Day. Oh, that made parkas and stuff down over there by the old skating rink on Pacific Avenue. You had Carl Richardson. There were several people that were, pushing all this ski business because they had the equipment. They were trying to make that move, which was fine. Wade Perot, and you had Martin and Shirley Fopp. You had Richie Nelson. You got Chuck Howell. Chuck Howell was and his wife. They were all instrumental in their own field. But everybody seemed to be working together, and we really put on, we think, a good program.
All working with the same goal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of other names come to mind, Don and Les Gilsdorf, for example, Dick Vanderfloot.
Yeah, there was Don Gilsdorf and his brother Les, Bob Hensey, John Toynbee, Jack Tagney. They were good skiers, and we all stuck together and made everything work fine.
Joe, personal question, if I may, and maybe I shouldn't ask, but I will. What is your age right now?
Well, I'm 88 right now, and I'll be 89 on May 1.
May 1, okay. Do you still ski, or when was the last time you were on the boards?
The last time I got to ski was 5 years ago. I have retina problems. I can't see the perception of depths, steps, and all that stuff. And I thought I better quit before I break my neck, because I haven't had a problem yet with that.
Do you miss skiing?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I can't compete with the hot rods, but there are a few people around that are my age that are still skiing, even water skiing. And I envy them, but we're getting older, things fall apart, and that's the way it goes.
But it must have been good for you. It must have been good for your body and for your health. You look healthy. You look like you can still race down the hill. I guess the vision is the problem, but you find that it was a good thing for your well-being as you did it so much for so long?
I enjoyed it, and we have 6 daughters, and they all skied. They all snow skied and water skied, and we all did outdoor sports, most of it in the salt water. I found that the buoyancy out there for teaching and whatever was a lot easier there than it is on, American Lake is where our club is. But yes, I contribute a lot of just outdoor sports, not in the other fields, but just the 2 fields, water skiing and snow skiing.
And you enjoyed, I think, every minute of it, didn't you?
I joined TOA, and 9 years later, I wind up being Commodore of the place. So I was involved with a club that went out on the water a lot. And it was fun, and the family enjoyed it all. And that's what I think is missing nowadays, is this outdoor togetherness. We got all this water out here, why not use it? Or, enjoy it. You can't always have a big boat and everybody gets on the boat and they anchor out and they can't do anything. But we used to, when I joined TOA, everybody had a 16-foot boat, and that's about it. We all went here and there, and we enjoyed it. But there was more family, I think. which I enjoyed.
Joe, it's been a great career on skis, water, and snow for you, and congratulations. You're a very, very important part of the sports history of the Pacific Northwest.
Well, I never was looking for anything fancy. I just wanted to do what I did. And, you know, the way I look at it, a lot of kids got to learn. I had a lot of people call me and say they want to ski, and should I rent skis? Should I buy the equipment and this and that? And I, most of the time, would say, I have talked to these various stores, and is it okay if I bring up the fact that if you buy the equipment or rent the equipment, could they rent the equipment and get the same price? You know, and they said, sure. If you rent the equipment, you can apply the rental to keeping the stuff, whatever it was. Excuse me. So we got along pretty good with that theory, and well, that's, you know, some families got 3 or 4 kids, and you all want to go skiing and buy this and that. It adds up. But I enjoyed my life.
Joe LaPorte, thank you for joining us, for the background, and continued good health to you.
Well, that's fine. I really enjoyed seeing you again.
Good to
It's been
see
quite
you.
a while.
That concludes today's presentation on behalf of Rainier Asphalt and Concrete and the Shannon Sports Museum of Tacoma, Pierce County. I'm Steve Thomas. We thank you for joining us on another edition of the Locker Room Chat.